Welcome to Unity of Wilmington, a spiritual community that is here for you, to support you in the expanding of consciousness and inspire personal transformation. We begin our time together by reminding you of three very important things about you. You are a beloved expression of God. You are here for a holy purpose, and you are where you are by divine appointment, at the right place, at the right time, right now.
When a thing is wick, it has a life about it. Maybe not a life like you and me, but somewhere there's a secret streak of green inside it. Now come along and show you what I mean. When a thing is wick, it has a life around it. Maybe not a light that you can see, but hiding down below, a spark's asleep inside it, just waiting for the right time to be seen. You clear away the dead parts so the tender buds can form. Loosen up the earth and let the roots get warm. Let the roots get warm. When a thing is wick, it has a way of knowing when it's safe to grow again. You will see when there's sun and water sweet enough to feed it, it will climb up through the earth, the pale new green. You clear away the dead parts so the tender buds can form. Loosen up the earth and let the roots get warm. Let the roots get warm. When a thing is wick and someone cares about it and comes each day to work the earth below, it will live, it will, and you must never doubt it. Through the darkest nighttime, it's waiting for the right time. When a thing is wick, it will grow.
Unity as a movement, as a spiritual movement, was built on the foundation of both prayer and healing. And today I want to talk about healing together, to explore that idea and to explore the gift of healing. Many people who have an experience of an illness, a diagnosis, and they come through it, can say, that's one of the best things that ever happened to me. What I learned, who I became, how I could live my life differently. Oftentimes, people will begin to live their lives more fully, more authentically, and more as their self, their true self. We have a lot of cultural pressure at times to be a certain way. You may have experienced it. When you think about your life overall, you may be experiencing in some ways now that there's a lot of pressure to conform, pressure to be a certain way, pressure to do certain things because other people, when there's fear in society, and we have to admit there is fear in our society right now, when there's fear, people get contracted. They get contracted, and then what happens is our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain, is not thinking clearly, logically, rationally, sequentially. What's happening then is our amygdala, our whole limbic system is firing off, and the fear stops the clear thinking. What we want to talk about today is how can we begin to release ourselves into clearer thinking, to let the guidance come from within each of us, to engage in acceptance of each other as we are moving through our own process. The co-founders of Unity were Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. They were spiritual explorers, seekers. They were interested in finding not only knowledge, but having the experience of their oneness with what they called the Father. And when Charles Fillmore talking about the Father, he's not talking about Father God, but the I am, the Christ within us. That was just the terminology that he used in his day and time. Myrtle Fillmore had an experience many years of her life being considered to be sickly. And Myrtle and Charles had been doing many things, engaged in many healing modalities, and doing many things to try to find that place and align with health within Myrtle Fillmore so that she could radiate perfect health. She had been diagnosed with tuberculosis. She had been told she wasn't going to live for very long. And yet she was seeking, she had some impulse, some desire from the Father, from the I am within her, to seek further. And so one evening, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore attended a meeting, a talk by E.B. Weeks. And in that talk, remember, Myrtle Fillmore is seeking something. She's looking for something. She has a desire. And in that talk, she heard words that resonated with her, that she just felt them all the way through her heart and body. And those words were an affirmation. I am a child of God. Therefore, I do not inherit sickness. I am a child of God. Therefore, I do not inherit sickness. Think about if you had been diagnosed with something many years ago and you were seeking to find a way out of that diagnosis, what freedom those words would give you. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. Now, I would shift that a little bit, to be honest with you, and that's E.B. Weeks' way, and my way would be, we are beloved expressions of God, and you hear that every week here. And because we are beloved expressions of God, we have within us that life force energy that is moving as us. We are it. We are the full expression of God, only we don't know it. And as the full expression of God, we can create what our desires are when we get in alignment with that divine nature that we are. Fully human, fully divine. When we get in alignment with that divine nature, we can do it. Myrtle and Charles Fillmore took their experience from knowing something, from knowledge, to having the experience. And Myrtle Fillmore, having that phrase from E.B. Weeks, I'm a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness, reverberate through her body. It was like, that's it. You know, that moment of, that's my affirmation, that's it. She had that kind of experience. And she took that affirmation and she said it every single day, multiple times a day for 2 years. So you see her tenacity, her desire, her willingness to stay with it as she opened up to healing. She added some other things. She went through all of her organs and she asked forgiveness. She went through all of her organs and she asked them to bless her. For instance, she went to her throat, her thyroid and her throat, and she asked forgiveness for all the times that she did not speak her truth. And then she blessed the ability to speak her truth. She blessed her heart. She blessed her liver. She blessed all of the organs after she asked forgiveness for seeing them as not working properly, for seeing them as less than whole. So let's just take a moment together and have a moment of experience of just tuning in. What part of your body do you see as not being whole? Let it be an individual experience, not something someone else has told you. And ask forgiveness right here and right now. You can do it silently or you can do it aloud if you're comfortable. Ask forgiveness. Right now I would tell you it's my weight. Ask my body to forgive me for putting on extra weight as I have aged. and really feel the forgiveness in your heart. Let it come from a place of truth for you. Whatever your body part is, whatever in your life it is, and then bless it. I bless my body. I bless my weight. I bless myself exactly as I am. Learning to come into the fullness of loving myself. Learning to come into the trust that I am. I am. And I am alive. And because I'm alive and I have capacities for healing within me already, that if this is something I desire to change, then I can take the steps to make the change. Charles Fillmore says that all healing is actually mental cleansing. Now, what does he mean by that? Mental cleansing. What he means is that all healing must come back to what caused it. It's very much like if you've ever studied Don Miguel Ruiz and his Toltec philosophy, you stalk that root cause. Another word for stalking is keep taking layer after layer after layer after layer off the onion. You know, whatever your onion is, taking the layers off so you can get to that place where that error thought began. And by error thinking, we're simply talking about the idea that we're not whole. We're talking about the idea that we're separate from our divinity. We can never be separated from our divinity. It is impossible. But we can turn our awareness away from it. We can focus so fully on our humanity or on, some other aspect of life that we forget that we are never alone, that we are always connected. It is only our awareness. That's part of why Eric Butterworth says that we see the world from the point of our own consciousness. When I think about my consciousness, even 3 years ago, I'm a totally different person. I have grown and I have expanded and I have let go of some things and I've taken some things on. I've looked at many beliefs that no longer serve me. Some of them I've released and some of them I'm in the process of releasing and some of them I haven't even seen. I haven't become aware of them yet. But what a beautiful journey of life when we can do this. When we can do this with joy, knowing that we are truly whole and that we've picked up along the journey of life, along the road of life, we've picked up some beliefs that simply no longer serve us. Maybe they helped us in our survival to get to this place, but they no longer serve us. When we try to apply those beliefs, when we try to do a certain thing or be a certain way that assisted us in getting to this place, that assisted us in our survival, and I'll give you an example. In my family, I never talked back to my mother after the first or second time. I might have had to do it 3 times because sometimes I'm a slow learner. So I learned how not to speak up and not to say what was true for me. I learned how to hold back and stuff the emotion as well as the fear that I had growing up in my family because my mother was a bit of a hothead. And she lived in a culture where hitting was pretty natural. So it wasn't like she was some kind of monster, but her way of being was very much a part of the culture of the 50s and the 60s. So I had to learn as an adult how to begin to speak my truth, to say, please stop. I had to learn as an adult to say, I don't like your tone of voice. Can we shift it or can we come back and have this conversation when we're able to do it in a rational, logical manner? I had to learn as an adult to say, hey, I am overstimulated. I need some moments because I don't want to say something just to be hurtful because I'm in that amygdala stream. I'm in that stream of emotion and not able to access my neocortex, to access my logical thinking. Because have you ever had the experience of somebody's really angry and there's this stream of words that come forth and you're not activated or triggered by their anger and your eyes are wide open because some of the things that they're saying to you, and when you say, hey, I don't like that, they'll say, I didn't say that. because they don't remember. Now, sometimes it's people just telling you that. But for the most part, somebody who's really honest is going to say, I don't remember, because it's true they don't remember. Because in that stream of thinking from the limbic system, in that stream of thinking from the amygdala, they don't have the ability to be in the rational, logical mind. They don't have the same filters. And sometimes filters are pretty good because they help us to ask ourselves the question, is this something I truly want to say? So we have a lot of layers to the gift of healing. We have the layer of learning how to tune in to our belief system and see, does this still fit me? Is this the current version of myself? We have the belief to tune into knowing when we're triggered and say, oh, I need to do something different. Let me calm down. Let me get out of my limbic system so I can get into my rational and logical brain and have the conversation with you there. And then we have to have the wherewithal to go and do it. Maybe we ride a bike, maybe we dance, maybe we journal, whatever is the best for you and whatever works for you. And if you don't know, experiment. Try a bunch of things on and see what's best. And then as we do that mental and emotional cleansing, and we come to the root cause of that which is producing the error thinking, we can release it. We can let it go. And when we come into that place of letting it go, we can come into greater harmony with ourselves, a sense of peace with ourselves. We can come to that place of knowing our wholeness, even if it's for 3 seconds. We can know our wholeness. And once we got it for 3 seconds, we can expand it to 5 and 10. And suddenly there'll be a minute or 10 where we can actually feel our wholeness. We can feel that connection to our oneness with whatever we call the divine. We can feel rooted into the earth and connected to the sky. We can begin to feel that we are part of the field of energy that surrounds us all. And there's certain steps that we go through, and I want to talk to you about that. Charles Fillmore in the Revealing Word says the first step in all spiritual healing is to believe. And the next step is openness and receptivity to the stream of healing life. The first step is to believe that I can be healed, to believe that I am whole, to believe that there is a process going on with me from the life force that's already within me, that is flowing, that I can tune into. I can ride the wave of that energy and create space in my body and space in my life to do the work. Meditation is one of the best ways I know how to do this. And I know I talk about meditation regularly because it's one of the best ways I know. Find your best way. Somebody posted on Facebook yesterday this article about what happens when people become overwhelmed. And the number one thing that happens when people become overwhelmed is they give up their self-care. So I was thinking about that, and I thought, in the past, I have truly done that. I have given up my time of meditation because I feel so overwhelmed and like there's so much to do. And yet the Dalai Lama says on days that he has a lot to do, he meditates twice as much. So I took a note from that. He modeled behavior for me, and I began to meditate more. And I began to notice in the beginning, particularly when I felt like I had a whole lot to do in life and a whole lot to do that day that was pressing down upon me. And I might be sitting in the chair meditating, but my whole body might be vibrating. And I really learned how much I need to learn to calm my mind down, to notice that it was flitting here and there and everywhere. That's not meditation, but that's progress toward meditation. And as I made myself sit in the chair, as I focused on my breathing, and as I began to make my breathing rhythmic, and as I begin to work with what's thought about as convergent and divergent focus, focusing on a point, and then opening up to sense what's around me and focusing on a point within me. Might start with my heart, it might be my throat, it might be my solar plexus, but starting with a point of focus, and then opening up to what's within me and all around me, and then bringing it back to that point. I began to train my mind so that the only times I'm really vibrating in the chair from, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, I haven't been practicing that point of focus and release. Because the letting myself sense outside of myself is a form of release and letting go. Training my mind. It takes training of our minds to be less all over the place and to come into focus. That's a form of healing. Begin to direct our minds to where we want our minds to go. Because what happens is when there is a diagnosis, usually tremendous fear comes up. Raymond Charles Barker says there may be a diagnosis, but it does not have to be permanent. But there's a road from diagnosis to lack of permanence of that diagnosis. There's a road from diagnosis to no longer having a diagnosis. And it starts with belief. And it starts with surrendering into what in my life do I need to do differently to get to the root cause of what came up. Not from a place of self-judgment or self-criticism, but from a place of discovery, of curiosity, of joy. How do I do that? Martha Smock says that the healing that we long for does not come as a result of our frantic prayers. And I have been one to be frantic in my prayer over and over and over and over and over when I was younger. The beauty is, as I've learned to apply spiritual principles, I have begun to open up to this idea. The healing I long for, the healing that you long for, doesn't come from the result of our frantic prayers. It comes naturally and easily as you let the healing power of God flow in, through, and as you. So I'm adding to Martha Smock. As we open up in that second step, opening up to being receptive to the flow of healing life. We are created as divine beings. We have the template of pure health within us. And the very fact that we can create something other than health, something other than abundance, shows us what powerful manifestors we are. And I'm not saying that to judge you or to judge me. I'm saying that to let's learn how to take that into a wow. I have some ability to impact my world. I actually have a lot of ability to impact my world because I have this ability to use my thinking and my feeling to direct my thoughts with feeling toward what I most want. There's a story in the Bible. It's in all three Gospels, what are called the Synoptic Gospels. But I want to share it with you from Luke. It's the story you may or may not be familiar with. It's a woman who's been hemorrhaging for 12 years. It's a long time to be hemorrhaging. And she'd been to many doctors and many different modalities trying to stop the hemorrhaging. Do you see the parallel with Myrtle Fillmore? She'd been to many doctors to cure the tuberculosis. And this woman, she's in the time of Jesus, so she's not considered to be clean when she's hemorrhaging, and so she's supposed to stay away from the crowds. She's supposed to be off on her own. And in families, the custom was that the family would take care of the person as long as they could. But when the person who was having an illness became too much of a burden, the custom was to cast them out into the desert to live on their own. And I don't really know where in that scenario this woman was, But the writer of Luke talks about how she had been to many doctors. And so Jesus was teaching at the time, and he was going from place to place to place teaching. And he had this meeting set up at a certain place. And he came to the meeting. There were a lot of people waiting for him to teach, to speak, to be with them. And the president of that meeting house, his name was Jairus. The president of that meeting house came and got Jesus and said, "Hey, my daughter has fallen ill. Could you please come? She's only 12 years old. Can you please come?" And so Jesus said yes. So the crowd decided to go with Jesus. So here's this huge crowd that's marching through the streets of the place that they were in. And while they're on their way, you can imagine when there's lots of crowds, there's lots of people touching each other. And all of a sudden, Jesus stopped. And he said, "Who touched me?" And Peter, one of his disciples, said, "Hey, come on, there's a lot of people here. Somebody touched you. They didn't mean to touch you." And Jesus said, "No, someone touched me. I felt the power move out of me." The woman who had been bleeding, we don't even know her name. The woman who had been bleeding thought, "Oh, I'm busted. I'm caught. I might as well come forth," because Jesus was waiting. And if you can imagine Jesus, having authority, think about somebody in your life who you knew had authority and knew something had happened and is willing to stand there present to wait to see what came forth. The woman decided she better come forth. So she stepped out of the crowd and she knelt down in front of Jesus and she said, "It was me. Let me explain." So that presence, that authority listened what I would call generously to the woman. And he said to her, "I want you to stand up. And I want you to know that the risk that you took to touch me today, that the faith that you held to touch me today has made you whole, has really assisted you in coming into your own wholeness. The risk you took to trust me." The risk was that of death. Because the woman who's bleeding, the cultural law of the time said that if the man had made the decision that he didn't like it, she would be dead. She would be stoned. But Jesus, living radically, bringing forth a new way of being that went totally against the culture of his times, said, "The risk you took to trust me has made the bleeding stop." There's so many gifts for us in this. Because remember, metaphysically, we are every place and time. We are every character. And that time and place is right here. What risk do you need to take to live in your full wholeness? Who have you been? Who have you been around where you're not letting your full light shine? For whatever reason. The reasons don't really matter. But where in your life and who are you around where you're not letting your full and glorious splendor, the light that you are, shine forth? We all have a place, but the beauty is when we listen to, when we follow the teachings of Jesus, the way he modeled living, when we take the risk to trust, when we call upon the faith that's already within us, And it might be like knees knocking kind of call upon your faith, and that's okay, because the Bible teaches it only takes the faith of a size of a mustard seed. It just takes a little bit, and we already have within us all of the faith that we need. When we call upon that faith, when we exhibit our courage, think about the courage it must have taken for that woman to touch the robe, the garment of Jesus, knowing full well that it could go to healing or it could go to death. And can you imagine the faith that she held inside of her that it would go to healing? And it did. And Jesus acknowledged her risk-taking and her trust. And the Message version of the Bible says that what Jesus said to her was to live well, to live blessed. To live well. That's what we're being called to do on this earth, to live from whatever wellness would be for each of us. For me, it's joy. I look for having a really good time every day, for having joy every day, for finding my inner peace, for having the courage to say what is true for me, to allow other people to say what is true for them and not have a need within me. And sometimes this is hard based on how I grew up, but not have a need within me to give myself up in order to do what somebody else thinks I should do because that's what they believe they should do. Well, I am not interested in telling them they should not do something, but I am interested in creating a world where we can have our opinions, we can open up to acceptance. That is healing. Acceptance of the perceptions that we each hold. To risk trusting someone else enough to hear us. And to say, thank you for telling me who you are. The risk of being ourselves. It takes courage. That's why I say regularly, practicing spiritual principle is not for sissies. It takes courage. It takes faith. In the midst of a doctor giving me a diagnosis, it takes faith to stand in the knowingness that I have the power to do something different, to look at, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disorder, to look at what am I bringing to this scenario? What beliefs am I holding in my body that I'm willing to let go of? What actions do I need to take to change something in my life so that I can live a healthier life because I'm not ready to go? How do I be more myself? How do I live greater than the environment I'm in, the culture that I'm in? How do I be a presence, much like Jesus was a presence? And how do I speak with authority? And I know that Jesus was considered to speak with authority because one of the writers of the gospel, Matthew, says, now when Jesus has finished saying these things, the crowds were astounded at his teaching. When he continued to say what he truly believed, and he talked about his oneness with God, and he talked about what it took for us to experience our own oneness of God. When he talked about loving first God, loving our neighbors, loving ourselves, that was radical in those days. And we're still 2,000 years later talking about learning how to love ourselves. And that's not a bad thing. It means we're expanding into being able to do that. And we're coming across people who are doing it, who are modeling, just like Jesus modeled that behavior for us. And he taught them, the people that gathered, the crowds that gathered, he taught them as having authority and not as the scribes. Do you know what gives Jesus the authority? He understood. He fully understood his oneness with who he called Papa. Papa and I are one. The Father and I are one. God and I are one. The universe and I are one. Whatever your name for it is. The oneness is there and present. All we have to do is turn our awareness, turn our attention to that oneness, to make time, to love ourselves enough, to do whatever spiritual practice resonates most for ourselves in order to expand our radiance. Another word for that would be our aura. To expand our aura around us, to be someone when others come in our presence, that our presence feels joyful, peaceful, harmonic. Where our presence, which is moving out, joins the presence of others who are moving their energies out into the field and desiring the frequency of love to be the prominent frequency on the planet. We have that ability, and putting it into practice is one of the gifts of healing. So other gifts of healing, it develops our ability to use spiritual principle so it happens faster. So healing, we can close the gap quicker when we notice that we're not living. When I notice I am not living in joy, I can close that gap quicker. What would it take in this moment for me to feel joy? What would it take in this moment for me to feel peaceful? How am I organizing myself that I'm agitated? All of those kinds of questions can invite us back into our inner knowingness and to turn our attention to wherever it is in our bodies that we experience that oneness with all that is, whatever name you have for that. It draws upon our faith. And as we practice the principles of faith, as we practice risk-taking and trusting, as we practice standing in the consciousness of faith with that knowing from experience, just like Myrtle Fillmore did. It took her 2 years. It may take me 6 or more. It's going to be different for each of us based on our beliefs and our surrender, our willingness to open up to what is already in the universe. The love that's already available to us that we don't see, that comes in a way that's unexpected, so we don't notice it. But when we get ready and we start committing to living well, to living in a blessed way, then we can open up to seeing how life is supporting us in ways that are different than where our expectations were. And then to feel the support coming 360 degrees around us. It invites us. The gift of healing invites us to integrate spirit into our daily lives, to find a practice that works for us and do it every day. A couple of years ago, I committed to doing blessing of the energy centers every single day. It's a form of meditation. And every day I did it. And about 6 months in, I discovered that I wasn't reacting as much to things. And sometimes I did not want to do it, and I had to move through my resistance of doing it. I was blessed that Reverend Mindy was willing to do it with me. So sometimes she would be the one. I would hear my own mind start up. Oh, maybe I'll skip today. And she would be the one to say, let's meditate. She'd be all excited about it. So of course, I was like, oh yeah, that's just my resistant mind. I got a couple of people in my life who were willing to ask me, hey, are you still meditating every day? I joined a meditation group for 100 days. These are my accountability practices to keep me into what I had heard in guidance, meditate every day. And I have continued to meditate. I have continued that practice. And the more I do it, the easier it becomes. And then I'll have a day where I'm overwhelmed and I have to make myself sit in the chair and my mind is all over the place. And I remember that doing it makes a difference. And I've simply come to a deeper level of my own scatterbrainedness. And I'm able then to sit until the meditation is over or the timer goes off. so that I'm training not only my mind, but I'm training my body to spend that time in meditation. I'm developing new neural pathways. Neurogenesis is what it is called. That neuroplasticity of retraining our brains. I commit to living well and living blessed. Are you interested in this? I commit to living well and living blessed. We have the capacity to get up every morning in joy or peace or harmony, whatever it is you're looking for. And the beautiful thing is the gifts of healing are available to each and every one of us. We have to take the risk to trust. We have to call upon our faith. And we have to make the decision to do the mental cleansing that Charles Fillmore talked about. And then we have to have the tenacity, as Myrtle Fillmore did, to continue the process until we feel our wholeness, where we feel it more than for a moment or two. But we can live a day, a week, a month, a year, experiencing our wholeness. Let's take these thoughts into a time of meditation to really integrate in this moment what it means to live in spirit, to be the spirit, to be the divine being that we are. I'm going to keep my eyes open. You can keep yours open or closed. But let's use our imagination for a moment. Our imagination to think what it must have taken the woman who touched the garment of Jesus. What must it have taken for her to reach out? What must it have taken to let her hand go and touch that garment? The desire that was within her, the faith that supported her, and her desire to be living in her own wholeness so that she wouldn't be an outcast from her family and she wouldn't be a burden on her family. What must that have taken? If we can see that in her, it is within us already. Where is it in you that you hold that faith? Where is it within you that you are willing to take the risk? Who do you need to stand up to and say, this is who I am, and I'm willing to be myself because there's no other one on this planet like me? To stand in the authority of being called to this place, in this time, on this planet, knowing that we are in the right place at the right time, knowing that we are called to be transformative love, to love God, whatever your name for it is, to love ourselves, to love our neighbors, to love those we think are different from us and we call them our enemy for whatever reasons that is, whether it's race, whether it's color, whether it's the social, economic, whether it's differing opinions or political things, whatever it is that we individually in our uniqueness call forth and say, oh, I don't want to know that person. I don't want to open my heart to that person. That is the place that we're being called to look at in this day and age. I'm willing to hold an open heart for myself and for others. That doesn't mean we don't set clear limits on behavior. There may be somebody who's mistreating you that you need to walk away from. But when you get the distance that you need from that individual, you can still hold the love in your heart for that individual. Maybe it's a job that it's time to move on from. And we don't have to move from a state of anger. We can move from a state of knowing that it's time. It's time for me to be doing something different because the urges inside of me, the impulses inside of me are calling me differently. It might be a time to join a group where I can grow, where I can expand my awareness, where I can be with people who are like-minded, who support me in my ideas, instead of push up against me and tell me I'm crazy. Whatever it is for you, how are you, the woman at the well? And are you willing to embody the words of Jesus that say, live well and live blessed? I commit to living well and living blessed. I commit. I invite you to say it in your mind's eye or out loud if you prefer. I commit to living well and living blessed. And say it again. And let yourself breathe it in and say it with passion, with that flair of, yes, this is what I'm being called to be. I commit to living well and living a blessed life. Because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I have the capacity to live into that, to live into my infinite beingness, to live well and to live blessed. And I invite you to come back to this time and this place, to this moment now, being willing to recognize that just by saying the words, you are different, by hearing the thoughts, you have a spaciousness to step into if you choose. And whether you choose to or not, let yourself be the love that you are right here and right now. Coming into this time, this moment with joy. Coming into this time and this moment with excitement of the potentiality that stands before us. And celebrating that we are taking the steps. No matter how big or little, no matter how long it's taken us, we are taking the steps and celebrating ourselves and each other for all the ways that we are on this journey together. And so it is. And so we will let that be.
It's a sad picture. The final blow hits you, and somebody else gets what you wanted again. You know it's all the same, another time and place, repeating history, and you're getting sick of it. But I believe in whatever you do, and I do anything to see it through. These things will change. Can you feel it now? These walls that they put up to hold us back will fall down. It's revolution. The time will come when we can finally win. And we'll sing hallelujah. We'll sing hallelujah. So we've been outnumbered, rated and outcornered. It's hard to fight when the fight ain't fair. We're getting stronger now from things they never found. They might be bigger, but we're faster and never scared. You can walk away and say we don't need this, but there's something in your eyes says we can beat this, 'cause these things will change. Can you feel it now? These walls that they put up to hold us back will fall down. It's revolution. The time will come for us to finally win. And we'll sing hallelujah. We'll sing hallelujah.
If you have been touched, moved, or inspired by anything you've heard today, we invite you to enter into the action of generosity and support Unity of Wilmington so that we can continue to share this message with you and with the world.
I invite you to take the risk to trust, to stand fully on a foundation of your faith, to live well and live blessed. And then let us know, put it in the chat throughout the week of what you've done if you feel so inspired, so you can be an inspiration to others by simply exploring your own life and living to your fullness. What a gift of healing.
What a gift.
Tonight we stand, get off our knees, fight for what we've worked for all these years. And the battle was long, it's the fight of our lives, but we'll stand up, champions tonight. It was the night things changed. Can you see it now? The walls that they put up to hold us back fell down. It's revolution thrown